What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of BreBre Talks MMA. Go watch these local fighters while they're local, because a lot of them, they're not gonna be local for long. Just saying. We saw that with Garrett Armfield. He's in the UFC. He just got his first UFC win not too long ago. He fought in Shamrock before. Joaquin Buckley, another example. Evan Elder. I mean, I could keep naming names, but yeah, go watch them while they're local, and then yeah, it's exciting to see them grow in their career. It really is. And getting to interview him after the fight too was really fun, and getting to share that moment. His family was so excited. He was so excited. It was just, the energy was just unreal. So yeah, congratulations, Max. Great victory. Beautiful performance, as always. Okay, guys, so I am still kind of processing everything. This was a absolutely insane weekend for me, for MMA, for the local scene, for the UFC. Like, a lot going on. I'm a little sad I didn't get to watch UFC live. Noche UFC was such an exciting event, but the reason why is because I was covering the Shamrock Fighting Championship event on Saturday. And I didn't know I was going to be covering this event until Friday. So it was a little last minute. I thought I was going to be hanging out on my couch Saturday night watching Noche UFC and then having Shamrock on my computer, kind of watching them both at the same time. That's what I thought I was going to be doing. But I ended up getting to cover it, which is great. Because if I'm going to go to an event, really, ideally, I want to be covering the event. I want to be paying attention. I want to be, getting some content, kind of helping build a little bit of that community for St. Louis MMA and for the St. Louis combat sports scene. And just kind of helping to grow the sport, not only with the UFC and PFL and GameBred, but also kind of giving back a little bit to the local scene and using this platform, using Fight Bananas, using my podcast, using this to help grow the St. Louis scene. So that's really what I'm trying to do here. And that's why I wanted to cover this event. So kind of how it went down was I saw the card was announced. And a couple people had asked me if I was going to go, and I was like, yeah, I don't know, I might. Not sure exactly what I'm going to have going on. I don't like to overcommit to things just because I do have so much going on right now, but I'm glad I got to go. And I saw the card, and I reached out to Dave, and I was like, hey, Dave, there's a card coming up in St. Louis, a Shamrock FC card. I'm like, I don't know if you've worked with Shamrock before, but I'm really, really excited about this because we've got Dustin Lampros in the main event. We've got Max Choriev on the card. We've got Trey Crawford. So I saw those matchups on there, and I saw... I really was excited for Dustin and Max and Trey and really all the fighters on there. I saw Alex Tremaine was going to be kickboxing a female fight, so of course I got excited for that. So I was really excited about it, really wanted to cover this fight and wanted to be more involved in it than just watching. I wanted to be involved, and I wanted to be able to use Fight Bananas and use my platform to be able to showcase this event. So I reached out to Dave. I was like, hey, I might be going to this event, just letting you know. And then he's like, oh, you want to cover the event? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And he's like, okay, we'll reach out to Shamrock and try to get, press pass. And so I reached out to them. Didn't hear anything back for a while. I don't know if maybe they sent me something and I didn't get it, or I don't know what happened, but I kind of forgot about it. And because there's just been so much going on since then, and especially with everything I'm doing with Fight Bananas, I'm covering the Contender Series, I'm covering UFC, I'm covering GameBred FC, I'm covering PFL. I'm watching a lot of fights, so to keep them all straight, it's been tough, and I don't have the best memory in the world, guys. I'm not, I wouldn't say I have a bad memory because I think I remember stats pretty well sometimes, and I would say maybe it's not photographic, but I have a pretty good memory for the most part. But with remembering names and fights, and a lot of times you have recency bias because you see a fight and then you forget about their fights before, and so there's all that kind of going on. But yeah, just a lot of fights going on. I mean, there's been UFC every single weekend, so I've been really busy, but I was really excited when I saw Jesse reach out to me, Jesse Finney, and was like, hey, did you get an email from us? And I was like, no, I didn't. And I was thinking like, oh, I just kind of forgot about it, and was planning on just watching the fights at home while I watched the UFC, so that way I could kind of cover both at the same time on the podcast, because of course I was planning on covering it on the podcast, but I really wanted to be there like live in action and cover my first event like officially as a Fight Bananas, media person. So I was really excited that Jesse reached back out to me. It was the day before the event, so I didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare. I did as much research as I possibly could, which of course a lot of it in these amateur fights is not even accurate. You look up all this information on like Tapology and SureDog, and most of it's like not even, it doesn't even have all their fights on there. So it was tough. It was tough to prepare for some of the fights. Of course, the main card was a little bit easier because you got the pro fights and Dustin Lampros and Max Choriev, who I've seen both of them fight before. I've seen Trey fight before. So it was definitely a challenge. I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't even know what I was going to be doing when I got to the event. So I asked Dave, I called him, and I was like, hey, Jesse just got back to me. He wants me to cover this event. What should I do? Like, what am I going to do at this event? And he's like, well, you can film some content, you can take some pictures, cover the fights, break them down later, on your podcast, and do some interviews. And I was like, interviews? How do I do that? And he's like, well, you just bring your camera, bring your phone, whatever you want to film it with, bring a microphone, bring a ring light, and yeah, just interview the fighters. And I was like, okay, that sounds way easier said than done. I'm like, I've never done this before. I'm like, I'm not a journalist. Like, I'm not an MMA media person officially yet, I guess. I guess now I am. But yeah, it was very intimidating. It was very scary. It was something that was definitely out of my comfort zone. But I decided to just jump in. And when I got there, I was like, okay, I'll just figure out what to do. I'll bring all my stuff so that way if I can do interviews, then I'll have it all ready. If not, oh well, then I'll just cover the fights and have fun. So I get there and it's like 6:30, so it's an hour before the fights are going to start. And I'm hunting Jesse down, finally find him. And I'm like, hey, I'm here. Where should I sit? Where should I go? What should I do? And he's like, oh yeah, you can sit by the cage. You can, film content, whatever you want to do. He's like, yeah, enjoy the fights. And I'm like, oh, well, can I do some interviews? And he was like, sure. I don't think he was expecting me to want to do that. But it was great. It worked out perfect because it was a kind of a last minute thing. We kind of just threw it together and it ended up working out great. We found a little area over by where the fighters kind of come out after their fights. And I set up my camera, set up my microphone, my ring light, and all that kind of stuff. Set it up right there. And after the fighters got done, they came over to me, did a quick little interview, and it was great. It worked out perfect. The quality came out really well, which I didn't even know how it was going to turn out, honestly. I messed with the settings a little bit of my camera just to make sure it looked good, but I was like, I don't know. There was just so much adrenaline, and I was like, I hope this works. I hope this sounds good. I hope this looks good. I hope I sound good. I hope I don't say anything stupid. And I know maybe I said a couple things stupid. I don't know. I don't remember. But the interviews, they look pretty good. I was happy with it. Of course, I'm going to be my own worst critic and I'm going to look at it and be like, oh, that I shouldn't have said that, or I should have said this. I should have asked them this question. But, I'm not going to be too hard on myself because it was my first time doing interviews, my first time covering a live event like that on the scene. And yeah, it was really fun. So... sorry, guys, my nose is like, I think there's something on my microphone making my nose itch. But anyways, so yeah, it was really fun. I'm glad that I kind of took the jump and, just said, hey, I'm going to do these interviews and just did it, and not played it safe. I guess, if you will, because I really didn't have a lot of time to prepare, and I had to run back to my car too. So I really only had like 20 minutes to get everything ready before the fight started. But luckily I had everything there. I had my computer with me too, so it worked out perfect. I came prepared as much as possible, but I still felt so unprepared. I felt so like not ready. And I really like to do my research before fights. So I kind of was a little discouraged with that. I was like, oh, I didn't get as much research done as I normally do. And I like to really let the card kind of sink in too a little bit. Like, you know, looking at the card and kind of breaking down the fights and doing in my head, you know, maybe some early predictions and stuff like that. So I didn't really get to do that. And mainly because I've just been so busy covering other fights that I just kind of forgot about it, honestly. And it just kind of snuck up on me. And then Jesse messaged me and it was just like, oh my gosh. So, but it was fun. And I'm really glad that Jesse Finney gave me the opportunity to do those interviews, because I know he wasn't expecting me to do that. And I know he probably wasn't ready for it. But he was just like, sure, you know, we made it happen, and it was great. And I think the fighters liked it. I think the fans liked it. I know a lot of people came up to me afterwards and they were like, oh, that's so cool. You're doing the post-fight interviews. A lot of people really were excited. So I'm glad it worked out. And it was a great event, honestly. All the fights were phenomenal, and all the fighters, you know, I say this every time, but they always bring it. They always do. And even just making that walk, you are doing something that most people would never have the guts to do, ever. So yeah, props to all the fighters, because without the fighters, this would not exist. My role as, you know, a media person, journalist, whatever you want to call me, I don't know what my official title is, but whatever you want to call me, that wouldn't exist. I wouldn't be able to do this. I wouldn't be able to do what I love, which this is what I kind of think of my role as, is like, I am a fan. I am a huge MMA fan. And if you know me, you know that I love MMA. You know, I love this sport. You know that this is my passion. Like, I love watching fights, breaking down fights, talking about fights, looking forward to future fights. This is like, it keeps me up at night. Like, I love it. So to me, you know, I'm a huge fan with a microphone. That's really what I consider myself. I don't necessarily call myself a journalist, even though I have kind of had that thrown at me a little bit lately. A media person, that probably is more fitting, but yeah, I love it, and I'm glad that everybody has given me such good feedback. I know a lot of the MMA media, they watched my interviews, which is great too for the fighters, because, you know, with me working with Fight Bananas, we've got a huge platform, almost 400,000 followers on Facebook. We've got over 50,000 followers on Instagram. So we've got a huge platform to kind of give these fighters a little bit of shine and a little bit of that, you know, giving them beyond just the St. Louis local scene, giving them a little bit more exposure, because you never know. Some of these fighters might end up trying to get contracts in the UFC or getting contracts in PFL or these other bigger organizations. And the more exposure that they get, the more it's going to help them to advance in their career and get noticed, you know, by big promoters. And with us working with Dean Toole and Gamebred and all of that, you know, it's great. It was a perfect storm, I guess, of events. You know, me working with Fight Bananas, that just started a couple months ago, and then this event, and then I ended up covering it under Fight Bananas, and it's fantastic. And then not only with Fight Bananas, but, you know, I talk to a lot of other MMA media people quite often, and they've been watching a lot of my content, so the exposure that this is getting is going to be huge. I'm really, really excited to see kind of just how big it can get. And really, it's for the fighters. It really is. It's just to help them grow and help them get exposure and get the star power that they deserve. So really fun. And also it's giving them a little bit of practice, you know, getting those post-fight interviews, because, you know, you don't see it. I haven't really seen Shamrock do post-fight interviews in a while, but I think it's good to do that because it helps them get ready for when they do get on that big stage. Because when you're in the UFC, you're going to have to do post-fight interviews. You're going to have to do things that are out of your comfort zone. So it's better to do it now, you know, with me, I'm not Laura Senko, I'm not Megan O'Leary, like I'm a little bit less, I guess, intimidating, or maybe at least I think I am less intimidating. But yeah, so it's good practice. It's good preparation for, their future careers and getting them ready for the big show. So I'm really glad that I got to be a part of that. I'm really glad I got to capture those moments. Man, being with the fighter right after their victory is just such a special moment, no matter if it's their first fight or if they're about to head to the UFC. It is such a special moment, and I'm so grateful that I got to be a part of that moment and share that moment with those fighters and just kind of feel that emotion too, because it's so exciting, especially when it's a pivotal time in their career, which I'll get into that later with some of these fighters on this card who I believe will advance very, very far in their career and make it, possibly to the UFC. So very exciting, very fun. I really enjoyed it. Glad that, the fighters were great to me. The whole team was great to me. The Shamrock team was great. And it was a great event. So and every fight was just, oh my God. Every fight was amazing. There was standout performances. Every fight that went to decision was just a banger of a fight. So it was great. I was so excited, and the adrenaline was pumping. By the end of the night, I was just kind of soaking it in, and I stayed there for a while after and talked with the ring girls and talked with, some other people. And it was nice. It was really cool just to be a part of it. So yeah, thanks again to Shamrock and Jesse for allowing me to kind of be a part of that and giving me a chance to do what I've always wanted to do is interviewing fighters and doing more of the this kind of thing. Eventually, maybe one day I'll do some commentary at some point. I don't know if I'm necessarily ready for that yet. But I think that's something that I want to do at some point in the future. But for right now, I really want to kind of get the hang of these post-fight interviews. So I'm glad I get to get this experience. It was great. So anyways, let's go ahead and break down the card. So it's not going to be a typical breakdown like I normally do, only because I was doing the interviews. So I wasn't able to really pay attention to the fights as much as I would like to. And I want to make sure that I'm accurate. So I'm not going to sit here and BS and talk about, this fighter should have won or this fighter should have won, when I barely got to watch the fight. So now I did watch all the fights. There were one or two that I missed the first minute or first round, but for the most part, I watched all the fights. So, and it was the early fights. Actually, it was the second fight. That was the one I missed the first round. And then there was another fight. I think I missed the first minute, but I think it ended up being a finish anyway, so it didn't really matter. But yeah, so I just want to make sure I'm accurate. I want to make sure I'm unbiased. I know everybody's got their beef and they got whatever, but I try not to get involved with that. I try to just cover the sport and cover the fights as accurately as possible and without as much bias as possible. So, which is tough, especially in the local scene when, a lot of times these people and there's a lot of really cool personalities and a lot of really awesome people in MMA. So it's I never want to get involved in anybody's beef, but yeah, it was like I said, every fighter absolutely killed it. It was just great. It was a really fun night, and yeah, let's just get into it because it was great. The first fight, Dalton Hudson versus Toby Gavillo. This was a very quick fight. It was, I think, less than 30 seconds. Dalton Hudson was able to get the finish. It was, yeah, he hit him with a clean, he even said in his post-fight interview, he's I didn't think it was going to be the first clean shot I threw to put him away, but he did, and it was fantastic. And it just shows, maybe he didn't realize how much power he has, and I was really impressed. It was just, I didn't expect it to be that fast. So the first fight on the card, what a way to kick off the card. That is what you want. You want a first round finish, a submission, a quick knockout, something exciting. So yeah, congratulations to Dalton. It was a great performance. It was, like I said, it was very fast, quick finish. And just what a way to kick off the card. So great job, Dalton. And then the next fight was a kickboxing fight. So it was Calvin Williams versus Arvin Mills. This was the fight that I missed the first round. And unfortunately, because I have seen some talks of controversy and the decision. And, by the time I got over there, because I was doing my interview with Dalton, that's why I missed the first round. Because I didn't realize that there was only like a very short amount of time in between these fights. So I kind of got carried away with my interview, and I had to, I just had to figure things out. I had to break my stuff down. But I walked in, the area where they have the cage, and because where I was doing the interviews, you couldn't see the cage from there. So by the time I walked in there, it was already the second round. It looked like Arvin was doing a really good job, but Calvin was too. I mean, it was really hard to say from just watching 2 rounds who I thought won the fight. I thought they both looked great. I thought it was a fun fight. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I remember Calvin threw some nice leg kicks that I remember. And yeah, he looked like he was probably a little bit taller than Arvin. I can't remember exactly what their height was or anything like that, but it looked like he was the taller guy, maybe the longer guy. And both of them, like I said, but Calvin, he had some good leg kicks. His striking looked really good, and Arvin looked really good too. It was a fun fight, like I said, but I missed the first round. So for me to sit here and say, oh, it should have been this guy, it should have been that guy, I don't think it's really my place to say, because I didn't get to see the first round. So it's kind of important to see the first round to be able to judge the fight. So I'm mad I didn't get to see it. And I went and looked to see if they posted the fight. I didn't see it anywhere, so I couldn't go back and rewatch it. So yeah, maybe I'll kind of circle back to that at another time and kind of take a look at it and, see what I think about it. But Arvin Mills ended up getting the victory there. He ended up getting the judges' scorecards and won. I believe it was a unanimous decision. So, it was fun, and I got to interview Arvin. He said he was really excited about this victory because, he had an injury. He had a little bit of a layoff, so he was happy to get back in there. So congratulations to Arvin Mills. Like I said, both fighters looked really good from what I saw. It looked like a fun, competitive fight. So yeah, really excited to be able to watch that. And fun, kickboxing fight. First fight's an MMA fight, get a quick knockout, then a kickboxing fight with a back and forth. It was fun. And then Brett Dieters versus Chase Lindsay. So that was the fight after that. This was a round 2 TKO for Brett Dieters. I believe this was a kick to the liver that pretty much did it for him. And he looked fantastic in there. This was his first fight. So he won his first fight and got a finish. That's incredible, and I interviewed him afterwards, and he looked really, really happy to get that win. And that's what I was saying about capturing that emotion and sharing that moment with the fighter where, this is a huge moment in their life. It's not just a huge moment in their career, but, for a lot of these people, this is something that they love. They're passionate. And that's why I love watching amateur fights, because it's not prize fighting. It's, they're not fighting for $1 million like in a PFL tournament. They're not fighting, for a UFC title. They're fighting because they love it. And because maybe one day, they'll be able to make it to the big show. But that's the main driving factor for them, is their love for the sport. And that's why I absolutely love watching amateur fights. And I think that's why a lot more people should watch amateur fights, because you just see a different energy, I think, with these amateur fighters, and I love it. It's really, really cool to see. So that was really exciting. Congratulations, Brett Dieters. Great win, great performance. Those liver kicks. He was throwing several body kicks in that fight, and I think that's really what worked well for him. So great performance. And then after that was Ryan Stone versus Jamison Hartwegger. So this was a really, really interesting fight. It started off, it looked like Ryan might have been in a little trouble. I wasn't really sure because, obviously I was pretty far away from the cage, so I couldn't hear what he was saying, or I couldn't really see it at the right angle to know if he was really in trouble. But Jamison had him in a guillotine, and from what it looked like, it might have been pretty tight. I mean, he was in there for a while, but He said in his post-fight interview, he was like, oh no, I wasn't worried about it. I knew that was going to happen. I knew I was going to be able to kind of reverse it and get the submission. So that's what he ended up doing. He ended up getting an arm triangle at the very last second of the first round. And it was incredible, to go from being in a guillotine and being in a risky position, whether or not he felt comfortable, felt confident he was going to get out of it, still a dangerous position to be in. And he was able to overcome that, get out of that guillotine, and get a submission of his own. So it was beautiful work that he's doing. And he mentioned that he's training at Finney's, training with Lucas Lopes. Obviously, they're getting some great work in there with the jiu-jitsu, because a performance like that, it shows not only is he great offensively with his submissions, but he's also great defensively, because his guillotine defense was absolutely incredible. And that's the only reason why he was able to get to that arm triangle, was because he defended that guillotine so well. And sometimes, if he were to get out of it quicker, then, maybe it would have given Jamison a little bit more of an opportunity to figure something else out. But the fact that he was in that position for a pretty long time, honestly, maybe that wore Jamison out a little bit. Sometimes you see that where a fighter will try to get a guillotine, they'll try really hard, squeeze, and then they don't get it, and then they wear themselves out. So it was just, it was beautiful. And I don't know what exactly his game plan was going into that, but whatever it was, it worked. It worked, and he looked great. So I was really excited to see him get that submission. So congratulations to Ryan. Great performance, great submission. And the first submission of the night. So it was fun. And then after that was a kickboxing fight, Alex Tremaine versus Krista Camarillo. So this was a women's fight. And it was fun to watch. It went all the way to decision. So it went the distance. And the reason why it went the distance is because Krista Camarillo is tough. She has a chin freaking made of steel, because Alex Tremaine hit her with some clean head kicks. And especially in the second round, she landed one that was just, oh my God, just like chef's kiss. It was beautiful. And this was, this was a kickboxing fight, so I wasn't sure what to expect here. With Alex Tremaine and Krista Camarillo, I wasn't sure. I hadn't really watched either of them fight, so I didn't know what to expect. But it was really fun. And Alex Tremaine, she was just volume, pressure, landing some clean shots, landing some great combinations too. Not only her kicks, but her hands. She looked great. I really would like to see the striking differential on that, because like I said, volume was huge for her. She was landing, tons of punches, kicks. She was just staying very active in there, and it was a great performance. And I know she, I mentioned this in her post-fight interview, she's been training with Jimmy Donahue. She's been training at St. Charles MMA. Getting some great work in there. So it definitely shows. She's been putting in that work in the gym. She's taking this very seriously. So I really admire that about her. And she's already got another fight lined up. So she's staying busy, and I love it. I'm really excited to see her fight again. I think she's got a bright future. So yeah, congratulations, Alex. Great to see a female fight on the card. I was so glad that they at least had one female fight. It was really fun. So great job, Alex. That was a beautiful, beautiful performance. And then Jose Diaz versus Edgar Torres. Oh my God, this fight was absolutely incredible. Just two really tough guys. And I remember watching Edgar's last fight in Shamrock when he fought Gabe Stein, and he was just tough as they come in that fight too. Even though he lost that fight, he was still like, he brought everything into that octagon. He put his soul into there. So he, even though he lost, he still put up a fight. He did not make it easy for Gabe. So, and then in this fight, so Jose Diaz, he actually took this fight on short notice. So props to Jose Diaz for taking this fight. I think it was less than 2 days notice he took it. So props to him. It takes guts to get in there nonetheless, but to get in there on less than 2 days notice against Edgar Torres, who is a tough tough guy. Yeah, props to him. And Jose's training at Finney's. So, you know, he's got some talent as well. And they're both really, really talented fighters. There's a reason that this fight went the distance because I think we got the right two guys in there. And I'd be curious to see this fight with Jose on a full camp and see how it goes. Because it was a really, really fun fight. Edgar, he just looked incredible. Man, his leg kicks are just a thing of beauty. And you could tell Jose was hurt with those leg kicks. And after that bell rang, I think Jose was playing a little poker face up until the last bell because as soon as that bell rang, his leg was just like done. And so I think he was really trying to hide it a little bit as much as he could, which is smart. That's what you want to do. You don't want your opponent to know that you're hurt. But you could tell that those leg kicks were paying dividends for Edgar. They definitely were. And he just looked great. I mean, he's such a good fighter. It's so tough. Both of them are so tough. Yeah, it was a fun fight. I got to sit cage side for that one. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch that. I kind of took some video on my phone, so I'm going to have to go back and rewatch that because there was some grappling that was really fun in that fight. There was, you know, stand up, the leg kicks, like there was all kinds of action going on in that fight. And I don't know what Edgar was expecting. I don't know if he was expecting it to go to the distance. I don't know if he was expecting to get a finish with Jose being so tough and taking it on short notice. You know, you don't have a lot of time to prepare for your opponent. So not only is it risky for Jose, but also risky for Edgar because, you know, Edgar's coming in there and fighting a guy. Oh, I just found out 2 days ago, this is who I'm going to be fighting. This is not what I've been preparing for. You know, it's kind of has to change it up a little bit. So, yeah, I was really, really impressed with that performance from Edgar. He just dominated that fight and ended up getting the unanimous decision. So yeah, congratulations, Edgar. That was just a beautiful performance. And then also, he talked about this in his post-fight interview, how important it was to get that win on Mexican Independence Day. That's so exciting and so cool to see. Just, yeah, with and we'll cover UFC Noche in a little bit, but yeah, with the whole Noche event going on that same night, Alexa Grasso is fighting. She retains her belt. There's other Mexican fighters on the card. We have Brandon Moreno doing commentary. It was a really cool event. So for him to be fighting on that same night, you know, in St. Louis, you know, a local show, representing Mexico and bringing that Mexican pride. That was so cool to see. And it was really, really exciting getting to talk to him afterwards about that because it seemed like it was really meaningful to him and really important. And like I said, it's so cool to share those moments with these fighters and what really moves them and what drives them. And he said, you know, I wanted to fight on Mexican Independence Day. And props to Jose Diaz for making that happen because if Jose wouldn't have stepped in on 2 days' notice, he wouldn't have been able to fight on Mexican Independence Day. So, yeah, shout out to both fighters just really for being so tough and so, you know, just putting it all out there. And yeah, it was a great performance. I'm really excited to see Edgar fight again. He's never been finished. So he definitely has that Mexican fighting spirit. And that's what these Mexican fighters are known for. They're known for, you know, that no quit attitude. They have so much heart. And so it's always fun watching them. So I'm really, really excited. And, yeah, great performance. Beautiful. And then going to kind of the main card, was Ethan Ray versus Jose Intriago. This was an amateur fight, but these are like higher level amateurs. So, very much experienced as far as amateur fights go. And it was fight of the night. It was such a fun fight. I loved it. It was so exciting to watch. I'm so glad I got to be there in person for it. Yeah, it was incredible. And Jose, man, the beginning of the fight, I thought he was possibly going to finish the fight or at least win, you know, the decision. I would say Jose maybe won the first half of the fight. Ethan won the last half. But I think ultimately, and it went to split decision on the scorecards. And I wasn't sure. You know, I was like, oh, I'm not a judge, so I'm not going to sit here and act like, you know, doing all these analytics and saying who I thought won the fight when that's not my job. You know, my job is to interview the fighters, cover the fights, talk about the fights. You know, my job is not to really judge the fights. But I'll kind of give my input on what I thought about the fight, the performance, and the decision. So I thought, yeah, like I said, Jose won the first half of the fight. I thought Ethan won the last half. It was fun. It was, oh my God, it was a great fight. Honestly, I think the fans won that fight, to be honest. It was so much back and forth, and they were both so tough. And it just shows they got the right two guys in there, fighting for the amateur title. They definitely, the matchmakers picked the right two guys. But yeah, Jose looked incredible, and he's kind of more known for his wrestling. I've seen him fight a handful of times as well. I thought he looked great. His striking looked good too, especially in the first round. And then in the second round, Ethan hurt him pretty bad in the second round, and it was kind of later in the round, so I wasn't sure how they were going to score that round. But I think ultimately, because you got to think, the first criteria that a judge is looking at is damage, and I think just kind of looking at that, I think Ethan did more damage in the second round. Just looking at how impactful that was in hurting Jose pretty bad. So I thought, there was a big chance they would give it to Ethan. I thought Jose, kind of with the takedowns and the wrestling, wasn't sure how the judges were going to score that. That's the thing. You never know really if the judges are going to be more grappling heavy, more striking heavy. They're going to, look at damage. They're going to look at octagon, because there's all different factors that they look at. So yeah, in the first round, like I said, I thought Jose won the first round clear as day. I thought Ethan probably could have stolen that second round just based off that, kind of the last minute of the round, really. And then, the third round, I thought Ethan won. So like I said, the second round, could have gone either way. I honestly, I would have been, I wouldn't have been shocked if they gave it to Jose. I wouldn't have been shocked either way. So it was just, like I said, the fans won that fight. Honestly, that was a great fight. It was so good. It was so fun. They're both so tough and so talented. Lot of skill there. So really fun to watch, and congratulations to Ethan Ray winning that belt. That's gonna be exciting. And great. And before that, he had a 100% finish rate, and I talked about this in his post-fight interview, and he's like, I was trying to get the finish, especially in that second round. I could tell he was trying to get it maybe a little bit too late. Didn't have quite enough time to finish the fight, but he was going for it. He was trying to get that finish. But it just shows how tough Jose is, fighting a guy with a 100% finish rate and being able to survive all three rounds. Not only survive, but nearly win the fight. I mean, if the judges would have given it to him, I wouldn't have been mad about it, honestly. I thought it could have gone either way. And especially with his wrestling, like I said, you never know what the judges are looking at. But yeah, great performance. Both fighters put on a great performance, honestly. That was a really fun fight. It was fight of the night. So yeah, and I agree. Fight of the night, that absolutely was 100%. And then after that fight was Trey Crawford. So Trayvon Crawford versus I'm sorry, I have something in my throat. Trayvon Crawford. Jesus. Trayvon Crawford versus Thomas Thatcher. So this was a really exciting, kind of a grudge match a little bit, because Thomas Thatcher, his last fight, he was able to get a finish against Pete De Leon, who fights at the church. And Trayvon fights at the church as well. Or that's where they train out of. So I was really excited about this just because of that, a little bit of that beef going on, and Trayvon's trying to get that revenge for his teammate. So that just made it so much more fun. There's a story behind it. It was really fun, and it was an interesting fight. I wasn't sure what to expect, honestly. I knew Trey was really working hard for this fight. I could see, because I follow a lot of these fighters on Instagram and Facebook and stuff, so I kind of try to keep up with, how they're training and what they're doing and where they're training. So I saw he's been putting in work. He's been putting in work. He's taken this very seriously, which is always good to see. So I was really, really excited to see this. And with Thomas coming off that win, sometimes you get confident when you have a win under your belt and you can carry that momentum. And so I was wondering, is Thomas going to come into this fight really confident and, know for sure, like, oh, I'm going to beat this guy and get it done? Or is Trayvon just going to be too much for him? I wasn't sure, honestly. And Trayvon had a great performance. He looked very, like I said, he's taking this very seriously. He looked very focused. He looked very hungry in there. He looked like he was like, no, I am winning this fight. You could see it in his face. I mean, he was just, honestly, it was intimidating. If I was his opponent, I would have been like, oh my God. So, he just looked very focused, very hungry. His power is just, it's a thing of beauty, honestly. And his pressure, too. He was just walking Thomas down. And I wish I would have been closer to the cage for this fight so I could kind of see it a little bit better. But he did end up getting the finish there. So, yeah, it was a beautiful performance. Congratulations, Trayvon. And it was an uppercut that ended up getting Thomas out of there. So, yeah, and what happened was, I can't remember, I think it was the first round. Yeah, I think this was the first round finish. If I can remember correctly. But Thomas, he got back up, but then he was just like wobbling. I mean, there was no way he would have been able to continue. He could barely stand up. Now, props to Thomas for at least trying to get back up. I mean, he was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to get back up. I'm going to try to keep this fight going. And, but the ref called it, and I agree with the stoppage. I thought that was probably the smart move. I thought Thomas looked very rocked, very wobbled. So it would have been over within seconds, I think, if he would have continued. Beautiful performance by Trayvon. Congratulations, Trey. Very exciting. And to get that revenge, for your teammate. That's fun. But yeah, it was a great fight. And then let's see. Oh, that was the co-main event. So, I forgot. So the fight before that was Max Choriev versus Matthew Perry. So originally, I think this was supposed to be the co-main event, which is probably why I have it out of order. But Max Choriev looked fantastic as usual. Kind of just what I expect at this point from him. He is on a tear. He is on an absolute tear. He started out as a pro this year. Earlier this year was his first pro fight, and this was his fourth pro fight. Still undefeated. Beautiful performance. He's very well rounded. He's very you can tell he's training with elite guys. You can tell that he is just on another level. It really is. He is on another level. I'm wondering when we're going to see him really face any adversity, because he's just kind of running through these guys. And he's 4-0, undefeated, all finishes. So yeah, it was just, oh my God, it was fantastic. Love watching him fight. And his opponent, Matthew Perry, tough guy. His last fight was in Bellator, his big stage. It's pretty much the second biggest stage to the UFC. And he took that fight on short notice too. And he took this fight versus Max on short notice. So props to Matthew for taking that fight, for making this fight happen, and for getting in there and just having the guts to face a guy that's undefeated on short notice. I mean, that takes some guts. So, yeah, and he's got a lot of experience. He's been a pro since 2012, so I think Max was probably in high school at that point, so quite a bit more experience than Max. I couldn't really figure out what exactly happened, but I didn't see any fights from like 2013 to 2022, so I don't know if he took time off and then decided to get back into fighting. Not 100% sure, but but he was, tough guy, and to take this fight on short notice, like I said, that takes some guts. And the Bellator fight, his last fight, took that on short notice, which It's just goes to show the kind of guy that he is. He's somebody that believes in himself, takes risks. I love to see that. So, yeah, shout out to Matthew for taking that fight and giving the fans an actual fight. Because if he wouldn't have taken it, who knows? We might not have been able to see Max fight. So that was great. And Max's original opponent was Quentin McCottrell, or that was the last one. I think there were maybe more than one opponent change in there. So not only was it risky for Matthew, like I said earlier, we're talking about the Edgar Torres fight, it's risky for Max too, because think about it, he's been training for a different opponent this whole time, and then having to kind of switch up his game plan last minute and think, okay, maybe my route to victory for Quentin was more grappling, submissions. Maybe my route to victory here is going to be more with striking. So kind of having to change his game plan a little bit. That probably had a big impact on him, especially mentally. It's not easy taking a fight on short notice, but it's not easy accepting a short notice opponent either. So I thought Max did a fantastic job. Really didn't have a bad moment in that fight. He looked incredible. He looked focused. He looked composed. He's, to me, looks like a mental fighter. Now his skills are incredible. His technical skills are phenomenal. His striking, beautiful striking. Beautiful grappling, beautiful boxing too. So his footwork, great. He's got really good knees. He's got great kicks. He threw a spinning heel kick in that fight, and I was like, oh my God. You just don't see that a lot in these local shows. You don't see these kind of techniques and this kind of level of elite a fighter a lot of times. So the fact that we're getting to see this on this level, it's like, guys, you need to go watch a Max Choriev fight before he goes to the UFC, because he is not going to be fighting in Ameristar Casino for very long. Like you're gonna have to go to Vegas or go across the world to see him fight probably next year. So definitely enjoy this while it lasts and appreciate him while he is still a local fighter, because it's not gonna last long. The way he looked in there and the way he looked his last fight, no, he's definitely UFC bound at some point, in my opinion. Or at least maybe Contender Series, something like that. And he's really creative too. He was throwing some elbows to the body on the ground, which I thought was just really crafty, really creative and fun. So yeah, it was a fun performance. It was really cool. And kind of like I was saying with Max, with him having all those technical skills and really kind of being able to do whatever he wants to his opponent, because he's just got such an arsenal of different attacks and different techniques that he can use, grappling, striking, all that kind of stuff. But I do think that the mental part of it is huge for him, because he looked extremely focused. He just looks so composed, not only in this fight, but the last fight, which wasn't that long ago either. He stays busy. He's very active. And not only that, but he's taking this very seriously. He's training with some elite level guys. He's training at Murcielago in Lansing, Michigan, which he's training with Joaquin Buckley. And it looks like it's paying off. It is really paying off. He's getting some great work in there. And when you're training with someone like Joaquin Buckley, who's fought on the biggest stage in the world, he's fought in the UFC. He has the most viral knockout in UFC history. So, yeah, when you're training with somebody like that, it's going to give you that edge. It just is. And not only that, but that camaraderie too. And him having, conversations with Joaquin and things like that, and talking to him about the mental side of the fight too. Like, that's got to be so helpful in preparing for these fights, not only with the training, but also just with the whole experience in general. And Joaquin's been here. He's been in Max's shoes. He fought in Shamrock too, and he made his way from Shamrock to the UFC. So it's almost like Max kind of has a blueprint of how to get to the UFC and how to really build his career. And I'm really, really excited about him. And I said this the last time. I think he's a UFC caliber fighter. I really do. I think his skills are there. I think he just needs more fights. Maybe, a couple more fights, and then he might be in the UFC, honestly. He was fighting at 170. So, it's an interesting weight class. I think, I think he'll do well. I really do. I know it sounds crazy saying that. He's only got 4 pro fights, but 4 pro fights in 1 year. I mean, that's absolutely insane. So yeah, and he said he wants to get to 6-0 before the end of the year, and he wants to be in the UFC next year. So I think that's entirely possible for him. I really do. I mean, 6 fights in 1 year, that's a lot. But to give him credit, he hasn't really taken damage in his fights. I don't know how much weight he cuts. I don't know what that looks like. So I don't know how that's going to affect him. He seems pretty confident though. So I trust him. I trust Max. He seems like he's got this figured out. He seems like he knows exactly what he wants to do. He's got a plan. He's visualizing in his head, what he wants to do, what he wants his career to look like. And it's really great to see a fighter that's really looking toward the future and planning their future like that. I think even right now, you could probably throw him on Contender Series, and I think he would probably do really well. I really do. Yeah, it's not often you see fighters like that on this level at a local show. It's just, man, he's very talented, very talented. Yeah, and great at promoting himself. He was great on the mic. We did a post-fight interview, and he looked like, everything. Skills, on the mic, promoting himself, promoting his fights, training, everything that he's doing it all right. He's doing everything right. He's only 25, so he's just, man, the future is really looking bright for him. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how his career plays out, and what's next for him. I guess next would be, possibly another fight in Shamrock. I don't know. I don't remember exactly what he said, if he was wanting to fight again in Shamrock or what the deal was. And I don't know if he has, what kind of a contract he has or whatever, but, yeah, I'm excited to see him fight again. I honestly, like I said, I think you could throw him on Contender Series, maybe one more fight, and then, you could probably throw him on there, and I think he would do great. I really do. Going to the UFC, that's a big jump. So I think after we see him one more fight, I think that'll give me a better gauge on, should we throw him into the UFC next year? Is he ready for that? I think skill-wise he is. I really do. I think he will do just fine. But it is a big step up. It is a big step up. There is some tough competition in UFC, especially at welterweight. So we'll see. But I do think that he's ready. I think skill-wise he's there. He really is. I think he just needs a little bit more experience. And then just to be sure, not that he would probably struggle. I don't think he really would. Maybe it might be a tough fight. His first fight, maybe it goes to decision. Maybe he faces some adversity. I don't know. I don't think it will be the same as like just kind of running through his opponents like he is now, just because it's such a big step up. But give him a couple more fights, see what he does, maybe increase the level of competition a little bit. But he's fighting tough guys, and I can imagine it's got to be tough for him to find fights. It's got to be tough because, especially now he's 4-0, undefeated, just really well-rounded. It's got to be tough for him to find anybody that wants to get in there with him. So that's another factor that a lot of people don't think about. It's like, yeah, well, of course he wants to fight tough guys. And he is. He's fighting, Matthew Perry. His last fight was in Bellator. He was 5-4 going into this, 9 pro fights. So I think that, it's going to be tough for him to find fights. Obviously, it's just with those performances like that. But I think if we can see him a little bit of a step up in competition next time, hopefully, and then just see what he does and then kind of base it off of that. And then, send him to the UFC. Send him to the UFC. Oh my God. It's so much talent. So much talent. I'm really excited, to see what happens. See how it plays out. Does he go to Contender Series first? Because you could probably throw him in Contender Series after another fight. You probably could. And then UFC, it kind of just depends on the timing too. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't know what's next for him, but I know that I am pretty confident we will see him in the UFC within the next year or two. Absolutely. I believe that 100%. So, yeah. Very exciting. Go watch Max Choriev. If you haven't seen him fight, it's really, really something cool to see, especially local. yeah, you just don't see a lot of local fighters like that. So enjoy it while it lasts, guys. Who knows where he's going to be fighting next? I don't know if, like I said, I don't know if we're going to see him in Shamrock next. I don't know. I didn't ask him about that, so I don't know what the details are of all that or what his next fight is. But it'd be cool to see him in Shamrock again. I think it'd be really exciting. Hopefully, because I'd like to, see him again, see him fight again. That was awesome. So yeah, go watch these local fighters while they're local. Because a lot of them, they're not going to be local for long. Just saying. We saw that with Garrett Armfield. He's in the UFC. He just got his first UFC win not too long ago. He fought in Shamrock before. Joaquin Buckley, another example. Evan Elder. I mean, I could keep naming names. But yeah, go watch them while they're local. And then... yeah, it's exciting to see them grow in their career. It really is. And getting to interview him after the fight, too, was really fun. And getting to share that moment. His family was so excited. He was so excited. It was just, the energy was just unreal. So, yeah, congratulations, Max. Great victory. Beautiful performance, as always. Really excited to see that next fight. Okay, so then the main event, because I went out of order here. The main event was Dustin Lampros versus Scott Ettling. Man, this was an exciting matchup. Classic, clash of styles, striker versus grappler. Scott Ettling's a submission specialist. Is 6-3 going into this fight. Dustin Lampros was 8-0. So, very, very good matchup in my opinion. I was really excited. I thought the matchmakers did a good job with this one. And just kind of, it was exciting to kind of have a little clash of styles and see how Dustin does against a really, really talented grappler. Scott Ettling, he is training at Pedigo. So they're known for just unbelievable grappling training, submissions, all that kind of stuff is what they're really known for. So with him training there, you're gonna get a really high level grappler in this fight, and I think Dustin was really preparing for that. I think he knew that the threat there was very real. And so he acknowledged and respected Scott Ettling's skills and prepared for those skills. And it showed. It was, gosh, this was a fun fight. It was, and it's interesting too, because Scott Ettling's last fight, he was actually fighting at welterweight. And this was a featherweight fight. So, yeah, I mean, that's just absolutely insane. I mean, you're talking like what is that? 2 weight classes difference? That's nuts. That's just nuts. And I'm wondering, maybe not having to cut weight, did that help Scott? I don't know. But it's, neither here nor there. He's actually been fighting in Shamrock for a long time, since he was 18 years old. So I've been doing this for a while. And he's tough. He's got 100% submission rate, so all of his wins by way of submission. And like I said, Dustin knew that was a real factor and something that he was going to have to prepare for. So he, and Dustin too, he's training at Killcliff, which if you don't know that gym, it used to be Sanford MMA, used to be Hard Knocks MMA, and it's had several different names, but that's where a lot of top guys train, like Robbie Lawler, Michael Chandler, there's some really elite guys training there. So he's getting to train with the best of the best, and I think it shows. He's getting that elite level training. Henry Hooft is the head coach there. And he's just an absolutely incredible coach. So yeah, he's getting good training in there, training with elite guys. Getting to that next level is obviously his goal. So he's on the right path for sure. And he was on The Ultimate Fighter as well. So having that experience, even though he didn't win that fight, I think it automatically gives him an edge, just having that experience, being on The Ultimate Fighter, going through that whole thing, and having that on his resume, whether you win or lose in The Ultimate Fighter, I think is a huge experience to have and gives you an edge, like I said. So I think that played a huge factor. His training, his experience on The Ultimate Fighter. He's coming off, obviously on a huge win streak. Yeah, just very exciting. It was a fun fight. He kind of looked, patient. which I was happy to see because, like I said, a very real threat with Scott, with the grappling, with the submissions, and Dustin was kind of playing with him on the ground a little bit. You know, he was trying to find an opening to throw some ground and pound. But like I said, had to be careful because Scott was trying to, get an arm bar and, you don't want to get caught in a submission when you are winning the fight and you have a real opportunity to finish your opponent. So I was glad to see that Dustin stayed composed, stayed focused, stayed patient, didn't rush in, didn't get caught in a silly submission and end up losing the fight. He stayed patient and looked for the perfect opportunity, started throwing that ground and pound, and then shortly after that, it was over. So beautiful performance from Dustin. I don't know what's next for him. He's 9-0 now. A lot of people are calling for him to go to the UFC. They think it's time. I think he's absolutely ready for the UFC. You're 9-0. You've been on The Ultimate Fighter. You've had a little bit of that experience. So, yeah, I mean, and here's the thing about The Ultimate Fighter. It's different than fighting in the UFC. It's not the same. I honestly think that for a lot of these guys, fighting on the Ultimate Fighter is tougher than fighting in the UFC, depending on who you're matched up with, depending on, what kind of style, you fight, depending on how much experience you have, and also depending on what kind of fighter you are mentally. Because, like I was talking to another fighter who fought on Contender Series, and he was like, yeah, those Contender Series fights, those are pressure cookers. Like, you can hear somebody drops a dime and you can hear it. And so, you're in there's no crowd. It's not the same kind of energy. So that does affect fighters. And I think that somebody like Dustin Lampros really thrives on having that crowd. And not that he couldn't fight, without a crowd. I think he absolutely could. I think if he went on Contender Series, I think he'd absolutely crush it. But I think having that crowd and having that, the support of the fans, because he's got a really big fan base, I think that really works in his favor. And I think that's what we need for him. I think he just needs to go straight to the UFC. I would like to see him on Contender Series just because I'd like to see, okay, here's a little bit of a step in between Shamrock and the UFC, like go to Contender Series, kind of prove yourself a little bit, prove yourself to Dana White that you deserve that contract, and then, kind of show your skills a little bit more in that higher level of competition. And we've seen a lot of talent, in Contender Series. So who knows? But we'll see. I don't know what's next for him. I believe he fights at both featherweight and bantamweight. So I don't know if he's wanting to go in the UFC. Actually, I'm going to look that up right now and just kind of see. I don't remember if I thought his last fight was bantamweight. But I could be wrong on that. So I'm going to look it up just to make sure I'm accurate. But yeah, I mean, I think he's absolutely ready for the UFC. I think it is a big step up in competition. It's a huge step up. So he's got to be ready. But I think he is. I think he absolutely could. Yeah, I mean, let's see. His last fight was Brandon Ball, and that was featherweight. Yeah, I don't remember the last time he fought at bantamweight. I know this fight with Scott was featherweight as well. But I don't know. Yeah, that was for the 145 title. So that's a good question too. Does Dustin go to featherweight or bantamweight? I'm trying to see. His last few fights, I think, were featherweight as well. Yeah, the last time he fought at bantamweight was April of 2022. And that was Ashton. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what his plan is. I don't know if he's planning on fighting. Yeah, I don't know what weight class. Because when he was on The Ultimate Fighter, he was at bantamweight. So I don't know if he likes not having to cut as much weight, or, you know, maybe if being a little bit bigger might help him a little bit. I don't know. Cause that's the thing. Like once you get to the UFC, it is a higher level. And a lot of times, you know, you get to featherweight and the guys at featherweight in the UFC are a lot bigger than they are in these organizations like Shamrock and things like that. But at the same time, Scott Ettling, his last fight was at welterweight. So yeah, I mean, he's not small. That's for sure. He's not small. Yeah, that's a good question too. Where does he go? What's his path? So does he go straight to the UFC? Does he go straight to bantamweight? Does he go straight to featherweight? I don't know. I think the thing is both those divisions are just absolute shark tanks. So bantamweight is obviously stacked. I mean, that's probably, in my opinion, I think bantamweight's the most stacked division right now. I really do. And featherweight's right up there. I think featherweight you could put maybe 2 or 3 top divisions. It's got to be between bantamweight, lightweight, and featherweight. So where does he go? Does he stay at featherweight? Does he go to the UFC at featherweight? I don't know. I do like the idea of him going at bantamweight just because I know how big some of those featherweights are. I think he'd still do fine. I think he's obviously got a lot of talent. But, yeah, or do we want to see him on Contender Series? Do we want to see him go that route first? Or maybe he goes a completely different direction. Maybe he goes the PFL. Who knows? And like he said in his post-fight interview, he said, you know, obviously he wants the UFC next, but he said whatever God has in store for him, you know, it's in God's hands. He's trusting that, you know, whatever path he's meant to be on, that God is going to put him in that direction. So I think that's cool that he has that mindset. I think it's good that he's not putting too much pressure on himself to get signed to the UFC right away, because sometimes that isn't the best thing to do. You know, sometimes, you know, he's undefeated, he's 9-0, but, you know, maybe there's a better route for him than going straight to the UFC or going to the UFC at all. You know, maybe he wants to do something completely different. I don't know what he exactly wants to do. I know he mentioned that he wants to go to the UFC, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. I definitely think he needs to go somewhere. I think he needs to go, either PFL, UFC, a bigger promotion. But yeah, do I think he's ready for the UFC? Absolutely. Absolutely, I do. I think, I think he is. And yeah, it's going to be a big step up, but I think, it's hard to argue against it at this point. It's hard to not, you know, want to see him in the UFC when at this point he's 9-0. Yeah, it's just, we'll see. But even Contender Series, they've got some tough guys like at bantamweight. You know, you've got Peyton Talbot who just won his Contender Series fight. He's got his debut coming up. I think it's against Nick Aguirre. So, I mean, those are the guys that Dustin's going to have to be, possibly facing. It'll be interesting to see. But is somebody like Peyton Talbot? I don't know. I like it. I like that matchup. That would be fun. You know, Peyton's a longer, taller guy. Dustin, scrappy. You know, that's his nickname. So he's going to get in his face. He's going to be aggressive. I think that would be a really fun fight. So we'll see how Peyton's debut goes and see how that plays out. But just fights like that. It doesn't even have to be Peyton or, you know, that's just a name that comes to my head because I watch Contender Series every week. So those names are very familiar to me and I remember their performances. But, you know, there's a lot of talent at bantamweight and featherweight. So there's a lot of options. There's a lot of different matchups they could make. It'll be interesting. It will be interesting, but I do think he's ready for the UFC. I do think he's ready, at least for the next level, to fight on a big show. He needs to be, that's where he needs to be. He needs to be on a big show. He needs to have that crowd energy, I think would be great for him too. So I do kind of hope he gets his debut right away without having to do Contender Series or anything like that, or having to do another show like an LFA or something like that. I think I'd rather see him just go straight to the UFC. Honestly, and I don't say that often, but I just think that with his personality and his fighting style and just what I've seen from him so far, I do think that it would be really cool, really exciting to see him just go straight to the UFC and have that energy with that crowd. And yeah, I think it'd be fun. I think he'd have a lot of fun with it. So I don't know. We'll see what's next for him. But like he said, it's in God's hands. So whatever's next for him is meant to be. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited either way. No matter what he does next, excited to watch him fight again. So congratulations, Dustin. It's a beautiful performance. Great finish. Yeah, it looked incredible in there. So great card. Like I said, the whole event was fantastic. Every fight was a standout performance. It was just really fun. So great fights. I really, really had fun, and I'm glad I got to do the interviews. That was a blast. So yeah, thanks again to Shamrock for kind of giving me that opportunity, and Fight Bananas too for we covered this event under Fight Bananas, so getting that exposure for these local fighters, that's huge. So yeah, shout out to Dave Van Alken, Dean Toole, the owners of Fight Bananas, for helping me kind of get my career going with MMA media and journalism, and allowing me these opportunities to kind of showcase, what I want to do, and doing these post-fight interviews and getting these reps in, and doing these local shows, so that way maybe, who knows where you'll see me next. Who knows, guys? I'm not going to say much more than that, but who knows? You might see me doing some more stuff like this for other promotions. I don't know. We'll just see. Never let them know your next move, guys. But anyways, so let's get into UFC Noche. This was, gosh, I only watched the main card, so I'm sorry. I'm not going to be able to do my whole breakdown like I normally do, just because I was so busy with Shamrock, and not only working the event, but also just all the content that I've been editing. And gosh, I feel like I've barely slept since then. So, yeah, so not full breakdowns like I normally do, but I will get into it, kind of give my opinion on the event. I thought it was really exciting to see the whole Mexican spirit, and this event, it was huge. It felt like a pay-per-view. It really did. I thought it could have been a pay-per-view, honestly. So yeah, that whole factor was just so exciting. And yeah, the first fight of the night was Fernando Padilla versus Kyle Nelson. Kyle Nelson ended up winning this fight via unanimous decision. That was a fun fight. I don't quite remember. Gosh, I've watched so many fights today. I don't quite remember exactly, who won the fight in my opinion or how it went down. But I just remember it being an absolute back and forth fun fight. So yeah, that was a really good fight. I loved watching it. And then Daniel Zellhuber versus Christos Giagos. That was a good fight too. So this was a lightweight fight. Giagos, he won the first round pretty clear as day, in my opinion. And then Zellhuber actually got a submission. So, and one other thing that I noticed about Zellhuber was he has incredible kicks. He's very fast, very technical. And his takedown defense is amazing. Very good takedown defense. He ended up getting an anaconda choke, which you don't really see those often. So that was really fun. And it was really kind of what happened was he hurt Giagos in the second round pretty bad. And then it was kind of a desperation takedown, if you will, from Giagos. And then, Zellhuber was able to capitalize on that and get because I don't think Giagos really had a plan with that takedown. I think he was just like, I'm hurt. I need to do something, to get out of this position, get this fight to the ground. Otherwise, could get knocked out. So it just shows Zellhuber's very well-rounded. He's got incredible stand-up and incredible grappling. So beautiful performance. And then after that was Raul Rosas Jr. Ended up getting a first-round knockout in less than a minute. So that's exciting. And to do that on, Noche UFC, Mexican Independence Day, to be able to get that knockout and just the energy. And right after the fight, right after he got that knockout, his mouthpiece comes out of his mouth. He's screaming. He's excited. The fans are going crazy. I mean, you're 18 years old. You're fighting in the UFC. You get a first round finish on Mexican Independence Day where he's Mexican. Gosh, how exciting is that? I mean, that you couldn't plan that more perfectly. So I was really excited about that. And he's now 8-1. So gosh, 18 years old and only been fighting. I think he made his debut this year in the UFC. So very exciting. Yeah, I'm really excited to see him fight again and see how far can he go. I know I don't want them to rush him by any means, because like I said earlier, bantamweight, that's a stacked division. It's tough. So I don't want to see them rush too much. But after that performance, he's going to have to step it up a little bit. I mean, they're not going to give him an easy fight. So we'll see. We'll see how far he can take it and see if, he can accomplish his goal being the youngest UFC champion. I think that it's a real possibility for him. So that would be really cool to see. If he ended up getting that belt when he was even 21, that would be impressive. And that's 3 years from now. So the future's definitely bright for Raul. Really excited to see him get that win. Jack Della Maddalena versus Kevin Holland. I thought this was a close fight. I thought you could have given it to either guy. I kind of was leaning a little bit towards Holland. I don't know why. I just thought his stand-up looked a little bit better. But either way, it was a fun fight. Went to split decision. So one judge thought Kevin won the fight. The other two thought that Jack won the fight. I'd like to see this fight again, honestly. It was just a really, really fun fight. Good stand-up battle. So, yeah, I mean, what do you do with Holland, though, after that? Because unless they rematch, what do you do with him? It's like he didn't win the fight, but he didn't lose the fight either, in my opinion. It was interesting. So, and I really like Kevin at 170. I really do. But I don't know what you do with him after that. I really don't. Who do you feed him to? Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss. I don't know. I feel like Kevin Holland is my favorite fighter and also the most frustrating fighter at the same time. Like, I love Kevin because he's such a dog. Like, he saved this co-main event. He did. He stepped in on short notice, which he does all the time. He's willing to fight anybody, anytime, anywhere. I love that about him. And we need fighters like that. But it's frustrating because, it's like, okay, does he want to win the fight? Does he just want to fight? I don't know. It is frustrating sometimes when you see him lose. Because it's like, I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it because it's frustrating. I want to see Kevin Holland win. I really do. How can you not root for that guy? He's amazing. I love him. He's great. He's fun. He's got a great personality. He's always willing to step in there at any time. I mean, I think in the last 5 years, he's had 20 pro fights. So, God, I mean, he's just a dog. I don't know. The fear I have with Kevin Holland is, should he take time off or should he just keep doing what he's doing and hopefully run into some momentum or maybe get that rematch with Jack? But my fear is that if you do give him some time off, what happens? Does he have a little bit of ring rust? Does staying active work really well for him? Is that his kind of key to, keep getting these wins? Because obviously he was coming off a really big win before this and then loses to Jack Maddalena, split decision, close fight. If he would have lost, by a knockout or a dominant, decision from Jack, then I'd feel a little bit differently. But it's just like, yeah, he didn't lose the fight. He really didn't. I don't think he won the fight, but he didn't lose. Like he didn't get destroyed. He didn't get. It was a very close fight. So I don't know what you do with him after that. I just don't. One thought comes to mind is maybe I'm trying to think. Kelvin Gastelum, maybe? Does Kelvin have a fight scheduled? Let me see. Kelvin Gastelum. Because Kelvin is now at welterweight. And apparently he's really focusing on his diet. So I think he's going to stay at welterweight, hopefully. But even Kevin mentioned wanting to go back to 185. I don't know if I like that for him. I think I like Kevin Holland staying at 170. So Kelvin Gastelum, obviously last fight was Chris Curtis. I just really like the idea of him and Kevin. Have they fought before? I don't think so. It's funny, they were both at 185 and now they're back to 170. No, they've never fought. I don't know why that fight really just excites me. I really want to see it. I think it's just because they're both so tough and both, just down for whatever. Like, I don't know. I like it. But it is Kelvin. Does he have a fight coming up? I don't know. I don't remember if he does. Let's see. Yeah, he was supposed to fight Shavkat. Oh, that was supposed to be on this card. Oh, what happened with that? I forgot. Huh. I don't know. I don't remember what happened. Why that fight did not. Oh, Gastelum facial fracture. Ouch. That's tough. So yeah, I don't know when Gastelum's going to get back in there. But yeah, maybe Kevin Holland versus Gastelum. I like it. That's a fun fight. I think I would probably lean toward Kevin a little bit, but I don't know. Kelvin's been in there he went 5 rounds with Adesanya. So yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. I like it. I don't know why, but I really want to see that. I'd much rather see Kelvin fight Kevin Holland than fight Shavkat. Yeah, I think Shavkat is just a monster, and not that Kelvin couldn't beat him, there's a possibility, but I think the odds are definitely in Shavkat's favor in that one for sure. So he's just on a tear. I mean, he's undefeated. Do we really want to feed Kelvin to him? I don't know. I don't know about that. Maybe we see Jack Della versus Shavkat. Maybe we see, I don't know. There's some interesting matchups. And it's interesting, too, Derek Brunson's no longer in the UFC. So, that's one gatekeeper gone, which is kind of interesting. So, the division it's kind of, I don't know what's going on with that division right now. So let's take a look at the rankings just to kind of get an idea. Leon Edwards, obviously he's champ. Colby Covington is still number 2, which to me just blows my mind. I think, and I like Colby. I think Colby's really, really talented, but he hardly ever fights. So it's like, what is going on? Ian Gary. He's another exciting prospect at welterweight. There's some really tough guys at welterweight right now. We've got Shavkat, we've got Ian Gary, Hamzat. Who knows? He may at some point go back to ones that I hope not, just because I don't want him to miss weight again. So what do you do with Jack Della? Who do you match him up with? Do you put him against an Ian Gary? Do you put him against Vicente Luque? Do you put him against Shavkat? I like the idea of the Shavkat fight, honestly. I really do. Because I don't want to see Shavkat fight somebody like Stephen Thompson or, Jeff Neal or even Luque. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see anybody that's like a vet or anybody that could possibly get like knocked out or, like Stephen Thompson. He's like 40 years old. Yeah, please, no, don't give him Shavkat. Maybe give him Luque. I think Luque versus Thompson, I like that fight. Ian Gary, what do you do with him next? What do you do with him? I don't know. But I think him and Shavkat right now are probably the 2 most exciting prospects at welterweight. And I think that they will either one of them will probably be fighting for a title within the next year or 2, I think. And then Neil Magny, he just got absolutely dominated by Ian Gary. I saw Kevin Holland called him out. So I don't know if I like that fight. I don't know. Is that a winnable fight for Kevin? Is that a winnable fight for Neil? I don't know. It's not a exciting matchup in my opinion. I think I'd rather see Kevin, fight Kelvin Gastelum. I think that would be more fun. Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities at welterweight. So we'll see. I don't know. And there might be fights announced that I don't know about. I don't know. But I haven't seen anything. Let me look at Shavkat and see if he has anything confirmed. I don't see anything confirmed for him. So yeah, we'll see. But I really do like the idea of Kevin Holland versus Kelvin Gastelum. Let me know in the comments. Do you like the idea of Kevin Holland versus Kelvin Gastelum? What do you think about that fight? I mean, it is it's a weird angle because Kelvin isn't ranked at 170, but at 185, I mean, look at his resume. Look who he's been in there with. So it's like, yeah, you can kind of justify it. And Kevin, gosh, that's going to be confusing getting those two mixed up. But Kevin, he's coming off a loss, but it wasn't really a loss. So it's interesting. I don't know. We'll see. But I don't know. That matchup excites me. We'll see. And then getting into the main event. So Alexa Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko. This was a split draw. Don't know what the judge was thinking there. Mike Bell scored the last round, a 10-8 round for Grasso. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know. Are we just going to go around handing out 10-8 rounds? It wasn't long enough. If Grasso would have done that for like 3 minutes or 4 minutes, like most of the round, then I could see giving her a 10-8 round, but I don't think it was a 10-8 round. And Valentina didn't seem like she was in a position to where she was going to be finished. She was definitely not in a good position. Like the visuals were not good as far as like judging the fight. Like she definitely lost that round, but to give Grasso a 10-8 round is to me that makes zero sense at all. I thought that, Valentina, she didn't even look like she was nervous about getting finished. I don't think she was in danger, but she wasn't at the point where it was like, oh, the fight's going to be over. Like, I didn't think it was that bad. I didn't think it was that dominant. And she was still throwing punches from the bottom, she was basically on her back and she was still throwing punches. So it's not like she was just on the ground, just getting, the snot beat out of her and not defending, not throwing back. So yeah, I don't know how you possibly, in what universe you could give Grasso a 10-8 round there. God, sometimes these judges just blow my mind. But I wasn't mad at the decision. If they would have given it to Grasso, I wouldn't have been totally mad about it. I did think that Valentina won. Just watching the fight, I thought she did more damage. I thought her striking looked more technical. I thought she just looked better. Now Grasso did get her rocked, in I think it was the second round. So she hurt Valentina pretty bad. But Valentina had some incredible moments in that fight too. And I'll have to watch it again to really kind of analyze it and see what I think, the decision, if it goes to Grasso or if it goes to Shevchenko. But just based on watching it the first time, I do think I would give it to Valentina slightly, just because I think that she just looked more technical. She was doing more damage, in my opinion. Until the last, minute or two of the fifth round. I can't remember exactly what point that Alexa started kind of pouring it on her on the ground. But I thought that Valentina was getting the better of the fight going into the fifth round. So, I don't know. I thought it could have gone either way, honestly. And just because you never know what the judges are looking for, wouldn't have been mad either way. And also with Alexa being the champ, it is kind of a tradition of you got to beat the champ. And Valentina was a dominant champ for so long, so it almost feels like she's the champ. It still felt like going into this that even though Alexa had that belt, it felt like she was the underdog. And I think she actually was on the odds. So yeah, it felt like she was an underdog. I thought that Valentina was going to win, and I'm kind of upset she didn't. Not because, here's why. Several reasons. So, first of all, these rematches, I was talking to somebody about this earlier. These rematches are just getting exhausting. These rematches are just, it seems like every other card is a rematch. It's like, Jesus, what? I really want to see some fresh blood in at 125. So I'm glad that Alexa won just for the movement of the division. But at the same time, I know Valentina's going to campaign for that rematch, that trilogy. She's going to campaign for it. She's probably going to get it because she just had such a dominant run, but I really don't want that. I want a new, face in 125. I want a different, we don't need to see Valentina again and again and again. It's like, gosh, does she deserve the rematch? I think so. I think because I thought she kind of won the fight, honestly. So, yeah, does she deserve a rematch? Absolutely. Absolutely. Alexa didn't win the fight, guys. She didn't win. She did not win. Even on the scorecard, she did not win. It was a draw. It was a draw. So, yeah, I mean, she got the belt. She retained the belt, but she didn't win the fight. And I think DC even said something like that in the post-fight interview, which is funny. He's like, well, you didn't win the fight. It was a draw. She's like, oh, okay. But still, exciting for her to at least keep the belt. But gosh, yeah, I don't really want to see another rematch. I really don't. I want to see Blanchfield fight Alexa. That's what I want to see. I think that's the fight to make at 125. If Valentina would have won, I think I would have probably rather seen Manon Fiorot. I would have rather maybe seen her versus Shevchenko, just matchup wise. I think that would have been fun. But also it would have been cool to see how does Erin do against Valentina. Possibly one of the best ever in women's MMA to ever do it. She might even be the best. Besides Nunes. Which Nunes to me kind of always just feels like the GOAT, but Valentina, skill wise, just, oh my God, they both, honestly, Amanda Nunes too. She's got great striking, great grappling. I mean, they're both just very well rounded. And I think a lot of people sleep on Valentina's wrestling too. She's got incredible wrestling. Because they forget just because her striking is so elite. Her striking is so good. So people kind of forget, she's got great wrestling too. And, she didn't get finished. So she did kind of correct a lot of his mistakes, she made in the first fight with Grasso. So I think it shows that she improved. But man, yeah, that's tough. Because it's like, what do you do with Valentina now? What I was hoping that Valentina would win just for her legacy's sake, honestly. I was hoping Valentina would win. And I was hoping that she would win and then move up to bantamweight and go take that belt and then retire. That's what I was hoping she would do, honestly. I think that would have been a picture-perfect career if Valentina was able to avenge her loss to Alexa Grasso, move up to 135, take advantage of that being kind of a weak division right now, take that belt, and then right into the sunset and go shoot guns or whatever. She's scary in the cage, but she's also a very intimidating person. Like, if I met Valentina Shevchenko, I'd probably be scared for my life. Oh my gosh, yeah, I'd probably be shaking. She's just a terrifying woman, and it's so cool to see women like her, like such strong women and disciplined women in this sport and in general. It's really cool to see. So I really respect Valentina a lot. I'm really excited to see, hopefully she can get back in the win column. I don't know if the rematch is going to happen. I don't know what Dana wants. I haven't really watched the press conference. I don't know if he said anything about that. Just because I've been so busy. But I was hoping for Valentina win just because I wanted to see her move up. And then I was hoping for a vacant title at 125 between Grasso and Blanchfield. Or Grasso, or Valentina versus Manon, and then move up to 135, something like that. So, but I was wanting to see Valentina move up at some point in the near future with either this win or, then defending it again against Manon and then moving up or something like that. But now that that's done, I do think that I want to see Grasso versus Blanchfield. Maybe Valentina take some time off. I don't know, but she's still in her prime, I think. She looked incredible. They both did. Grasso and Shevchenko looked incredible, but I think, I don't know. It's just frustrating because Grasso didn't win the fight. Man, that is the most frustrating way for that fight to end possible. I mean, a split draw, we never see that, especially in title fights. Like, it's not often you see that. So it's just, God, it's frustrating. I really, yeah, I don't know. But, I don't know, what do you guys think? Do you think we're going to get a trilogy? Do you think we're going to get an immediate trilogy? Or do you think that Blanchfield is going to fight Grasso? Do you think Manon's going to fight Grasso? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. I'm curious to see what everybody thinks is next for Flyweight. And then let's see, what else do we want to get into? I'm going to get into some MMA news. So, I saw Mike Perry's calling out Darren Till. That's pretty funny. They had quite the rivalry, at one point when they were both in the UFC. And now with Mike Perry being in BKFC, doing bare knuckle boxing, I don't know. How does Darren Till do in bare knuckle? I think Mike Perry would absolutely destroy him in bare knuckle. But who knows? I mean, Darren Till's got great striking. So we'll see. But yeah, I think, I don't know. Is Till going to do that? I don't know. What is Till doing? I think he had an injury or maybe a couple injuries. So he's been out for a while and, he's not in the UFC anymore. So it's like, what is he doing? I don't know. Who knows with that guy? Who knows what he's up to? But that would be really fun. I'd really like to see it. The trash talk would be incredible. Darren Till's such a troll. I kind of miss having Darren Till in the UFC. I miss that. He was fun. He was just really good at being a troll and talking trash. And it was fun to witness. So, I don't know. We'll see. And then also I saw that Vince St. Preux was cut from the UFC. He tested positive for, I don't know, some kind of steroids or something. So, gosh. Yikes. That's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. So who knows? Maybe we'll see him in Game Bred Bare Knuckle or something like that. I don't know. Because it's not like he can go to PFL because PFL has USADA too. So I don't know how that works. That's a good question. So if you're in the UFC and you get busted for steroids and you're suspended, and then you get cut from the UFC, are you then barred from going to another organization that tests with USADA? Or I don't know how that works. So if somebody knows how that works, let me know. But I'm just curious to see because there's not a lot of options for him now that PFL, has USADA and it's not like other organizations don't test. They still test. It's just not as stringent as USADA, and USADA they don't play. So, yeah, that's unfortunate. I don't know what. Yeah, that sucks. I don't know how all these fighters sometimes think they can get away with it with USADA. It's kind of tough to get through USADA. I mean, man. So if you get caught in the UFC, it's like, yeah, that's a black eye on your resume for kind of the rest of your career almost. I mean, look at TJ Dillashaw. How many memes have we seen of TJ Dillashaw about the steroids and all that? So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I haven't seen. When's the last time OSP fought? Let me look. See real quick. When is the last time he fought? I feel like it's been a minute. I feel like it's been like this year, maybe last year, but it's been a while. I feel like, or maybe there's just been so many fights, that I just can't keep track. Where's he at? Oh, here we go. Oh yeah, he got knocked out by Philip Lins. Oh, I remember that. That was the first round. Yeah, that was rough. So that's not good. Yeah, he's not on the best run and then gets popped for steroids. So yeah, it's kind of not surprising he got cut, honestly. I do like watching him fight. I think especially during COVID, when he fought Metafield, and he's had a couple other fights before that were really fun. He's fun to watch, but yeah, that's tough. Lose. Yeah, it looks like 3 out of his last 4 he lost, and then get busted for steroids. Yeah, I mean that's just that's rough. But I don't know. We'll see what's next for him. I have no idea. I have no idea where he's gonna go from here with being getting busted like that. I don't know. And then let's get into some fan questions. So let's see what we've got from Instagram. I'm going to take a look at these questions here. See if anything new came up. Okay. First question, who's UFC bound from Shamrock? This question's from Cody Thurman. Who's UFC bound from Shamrock? I think Dustin Lampros and Max Choriev. Absolutely. Yeah, those are the easiest answers. I think Dustin will probably be a little bit sooner, but I think, man, yeah, it's going to be really cool to see Max in the UFC. It's going to be really cool. He's just so skilled. Both those guys, Dustin and Max. But yeah, I think they're both UFC bound. I think we will see both of them in the UFC at some point, whether it be, later this year, whether it be next year, whether it be 2025. I think it will be within the near future. I think we'll see them in there. I mean, yeah, if you're Dana White and you see Max Choriev, you're taking notes. You're like, oh, okay, I'm paying attention to this guy. At least I would think. He's just got a lot of talent. And Dustin Lampros, too. And I'm sure, with him being on The Ultimate Fighter, getting in front of Dana already at some point, that definitely probably gives him an advantage. But yeah, I think we'll see both those guys in the UFC. But there's, it's tough to say with, these amateur fighters because you never know. I mean, these fighters, in the beginning of their career as an amateur, it's tough to say, where they're going to go this early. If there's any fighters on here that are amateurs that I think could at some point end up in the UFC, Ethan Ray, Jose Intriago, both those guys, honestly, at some point, once they go pro, see how they do as a pro, and then maybe, who knows what their future holds. I think, calling a UFC would be a little much right now, but who knows? I mean, they're early in their career. They're amateurs. So once they go to that pro level, then that's going to be really, really exciting to see how they progress and where they go. And then at that point, maybe we can be like, okay, now this fighter, they might end up in the UFC. And then, you've got Edgar Torres, with a great performance, and he looked incredible in there. Yeah, there's a lot of fighters on this card that looked really good. Even the amateurs, looked incredible. So talented. All of them so talented. Yeah, you never know. You really never know. You could be watching an amateur fight. It could be their first fight, and you're like, oh, wow, they're really good. And then 2 years later, they're in the UFC. You never know. The sport is wild. So we'll see. I mean, it depends on how active they are. It depends on when they want to, fight next and all that. But there's definitely a lot of talent on that card. But I think as far as who actually are we going to see in the UFC for sure, I think is Max and Dustin, I think, 100%. So that's my thoughts. I don't know if their next fight will be in the UFC, but I think it will be at some point in their next few fights. That will be a real possibility. So, and Lampros, that might be his next fight. Who knows? But yeah, it was really fun to watch. Really cool to see just the early beginnings of these careers unfold. Is really cool. And then another question from Pete DeLeon. See what he wants to know. See, let me get back to my questions. Pete DeLeon asked, do you think judges should have to be able to validate their decisions in post-fight interviews? Well, they didn't tell me to interview the judges, so I did not. But if they wanted to come do an interview, I would have been like, sure, absolutely. I don't think they would. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I think that we definitely need to know what the judges are looking for. I think that's important. I think having a consistency is important. You know, if you're gonna favor grappling in all of the fights, you know, favor striking, favor damage, whatever is your top scoring criteria, or whatever, you know, first is damage, then, you know, pressure, then this, then that, effective grappling, and what is effective grappling, because another fighter I was talking to made a good point. You know, with effective grappling on the scorecards, which I think is the second criteria. And this was a kickboxing fight. I'm assuming he's asking me about the Arvin Mills, Calvin Williams fight. I'm assuming that's where this question's coming from. But it's interesting because in kickboxing, I'm not as familiar with the rules, but I would assume damage is still probably the number one criteria. But with MMA, you know, you have damage, you have effective striking, effective grappling. Those are kind of like the top criteria. So what is effective grappling? Is it you get a takedown and the guy gets right back up? Who was the more effective grappler in that situation? Because you had to grapple your way back up. So it's hard to say what exactly, you know, they're looking for. We don't know a lot of times. And there is a lack of consistency sometimes with the decisions. It's like, you know, one day they'll give a decision to somebody who just kind of lay and prayed the whole time and just grappled their way to a victory, didn't really do much damage, didn't really do much other than just takedowns. We've seen that a lot. Or we see a fight where somebody gets a lot of takedowns and they end up losing the fight just because the other fighter did more damage. So I think just having more consistency, educating not only the fighters, but also the fans and the viewers on what the judges are looking for, I think would be pretty helpful, just so we know, you know, what are the rules? What are they looking at? I think that would be good to know, just what exactly they are looking for in there. And then, should they have to validate their decisions? I don't know. I think being a judge is a tough job. I think it's kind of a thankless job, honestly. You know, it is frustrating. You know, sometimes the judges, they make decisions and you're like, what were they thinking? They should be fired. They should never be able to judge a fight again. And also it's like, who are these judges? We don't know. A lot of times where, you know, who these people are, where they come from, what their background is, you know, have they ever fought before? Have they watched MMA? Have they watched kickboxing? Do they know the rule? You know, obviously they got to know the rules, but you know, who knows? Who knows who the judges are? So yeah, do I think judges should be held accountable or validate their scores or their decisions in a post-fight interview? Sure. You know, not a bad idea. Do I think it's going to happen? No. So just being realistic. Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, it's an interesting thought though. It's an interesting thought. In theory, it's a fun idea. You know, get the judges a little more accountable for their decisions. But yeah, I don't think that'll happen. Anyways, going to the Fight Bananas questions. So I had a question from a fan. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up. A Fight Bananas fan. Monica Vitello asked, who wins Khamzat Chimaev versus Israel Adesanya? Gosh. Oh, I do not want to predict this fight. That's a great question, honestly. Because who knows? We could see that fight happen. We very well could. I think if Khamzat beats Costa, I think he's going to call for a title shot. So I think he's going to call for that Sean Strickland matchup, which I think, I don't know, what's a tougher matchup for Khamzat? Sean Strickland or Israel Adesanya? I don't know. I would say probably Israel is the tougher matchup for him. I think, I don't know. The thing about Khamzat is if you look at his past opponents, a lot of them have aged well. You know, a lot of them, they won their fight after even getting knocked out, finished, beat by Khamzat. You know, saw Gilbert Burns go on a nice little streak there for a second. And some other guys that he's fought even before the UFC, like Aliskerov, who now is in the UFC. So I think Khamzat has a ton of skill. He's terrifying, very aggressive, lots of pressure. So I do lean toward Khamzat a little bit in that fight. And I would have even said that before the Sean Strickland fight. I just never thought that Khamzat versus Adesanya would come to fruition. So it was something I didn't really put a whole lot of thought into as far as like the matchup goes, and just their styles. I do think that Adesanya, after seeing him with, Pereira and seeing him with Sean Strickland, especially with Strickland just applying that pressure and kind of controlling the octagon, that does make me worry about the Khamzat matchup and potentially seeing Adesanya on his heels again, and possibly getting finished. Could we possibly see Israel Adesanya get finished by Khamzat Chimaev? I think we could. And the other thing, not only the pressure and not only the aggressiveness of Khamzat, and I was saying the same thing about Sean, it's just the variety of attacks that he has at his disposal. He's got a ton of different ways that he could potentially beat Adesanya. We thought it was impossible for Sean to beat Adesanya on the feet, and he proved to us that it is possible. To stand toe to toe with Adesanya and beat him in a 5-round decision, pretty much dominate every single round on the feet without having to use any wrestling. Khamzat sees that and he's thinking, oh, well, man, I got this in the bag. Let's go. Let's get in there. So I think Sean gave Khamzat a more clear path to victory where it's like, oh, I don't even have to wrestle this guy. I could beat him on the feet potentially, just using that aggressiveness, his power. We've seen Israel Adesanya hurt now from Sean Strickland, which other than that last-minute knockout from Pereira, we really have never seen Adesanya face that kind of adversity. So I don't know. I think Khamzat might be able to beat him. I really do. I don't think it's going to be an easy fight. I mean, he had a tough fight with Gilbert Burns, who really is more of a grappler, but has really good striking too. I think a lot of people forget, just because Gilbert is such a high-level black belt in jiu-jitsu, we forget his striking is just really, really good. I mean, we saw what he did to Masvidal. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting fight. I do lean a little bit towards Khamzat in that after seeing the Sean Strickland fight. I really do. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. Well, thank you guys so much for watching, listening, however you consume this. I really appreciate the support. I appreciate everybody coming up to me at the Shamrock event, telling me they love my podcast, telling me they're excited about my future and my career. I just really appreciate all the support. It's been absolutely incredible. I'm excited to do more in-person events and doing post-fight interviews, and who knows what you'll see me doing next. I mean, things are moving fast. Opportunities are coming up, so thank you again for the support. I really, really appreciate it, and I had a blast at the Shamrock event. It was incredible. So it was a great weekend for me as a fight fan, as a media person, as somebody who's just wanting to really dive into this sport. I really appreciate it. So thank you guys, and I will see you next week. Bye.